Okay, I've got sound and I'm ready to go. This is part two of BISS 4403 data admin. And of course, as I said last night, the way we're handling this course, I got an email today and it was a good question because I may not have been clear enough. Part one of this class is a hybrid class, and it's hybrid in that from 6 on Thursday from 6 to 7:15, 7:30 at the latest. My expectation is that you will be in class. Okay, you'll be there with me in BBC Lab. Now, I will be live streaming that as I did last night. So if you can't be there, okay, but make sure that you log in the next day before noon. Now, the second, the virtual part is what you're hearing now because I'm recording this. I'm not live streaming it, and I'll post this over in the announcements, and so you'll have part one is the ground-based where we're in the lab, okay, and I record that class session. Then the virtual part is when you see this video, this screencast, I'll take it and process it, and then I'll put it over in the announcements, okay? So hopefully that will will keep us on track. And I got an email about it today. It was a good question, and I probably didn't explain it enough. Now, there will be the person or persons who say, well, I can't be there that Thursday night. Okay, that's fine. The class session is recorded, so as long as you see it and you log into Canvas and see it before noon the next day, you're still fine as far as attendance. All right? So I'm trying to give you some flexibility, but to make sure that on Thursday nights at 6 o'clock, I will be there in BBC at the lab, and my expectation is that you're there with me. If you're not, there needs to be some really good reason for you not to be. All right, now, I think I also talked about the textbooks in the class, and I want to just reiterate that very quickly here, and I'm over at the Vital Source Library. The POTSI text, this is the one on Access 2016. That's one of the textbooks. Business Intelligence is another one of the textbooks. And I think that's pretty much it. Just to make sure, let's go over to the course syllabus and take a look, okay? And you'll find the course syllabus. You can either go into the files, which is probably going to be, might be the easiest, is to go into the file section and look for syllabus. And there's the spring syllabus, excuse me. Let's open that thing up and take a look at it. And you have three textbooks. You have the SQL Fundamentals. That's that red textbook I held up and showed you that. That has the codes for the lunches database that we'll go through. Then the text on Business Intelligence. I just showed you that a minute ago. And then the POTSI text on Microsoft Access. So we'll be using materials from those. That being said, I'm going to go ahead and go back to the welcome to the modules. As I said before, the first place you want to go really it is probably as opposed to the modules. First, take a stop over at the announcements. Now you're going to see that I have posted my schedule for next week, Monday, February 4th, to Friday, February 8th. And I have that schedule posted for you all. I'll also have it posted on my door. And then you see here's part one, the ground-based portion of the course. That's what we did last night. Okay. And then I also hold virtual office hours, and you'll see that in the schedule. And those are a time I'm there, I'm online, I have Zoom, I have a room open. And if you have questions or something I can try to help you with, I'm available during those hours, okay? And I try to keep somewhere in terms of virtual office hours and physical office hours when I'm over at Bailey between 10 to 15 hours a week. So it's not like I'm not around. It's not like you can't reach me. And if you have a question or problem, you can get a hold of me. And of course, as I would always say, email is the fastest way. Okay? All right. That being said, let's go back over to the modules section. We looked there in the syllabus. Okay? And we saw some information about the textbooks. All right, and let's go in. I think I've got it. I think I have it here for you. Down at the very bottom of this. Well, this is way, way, way up. Let's down to the. I'll just do a search here. I'll do syllabus. There it is. There's the syllabus. And again, let me open it back up. And we talked about the textbooks, okay? I noted those. And the course supplemental website. And then here's the grading. We have 4 access workshops you could sit yourself, which we'll do some work on using Northwind Traders. Then you have exams from the POTSI text. That's the one on access. You have 18 lunches databases. And those are like workshops where we're going to take the Patrick text, that's that red text, and we'll go through those case studies, okay? And we'll just go chapter by chapter. And what's going to happen is we're going to build a simple queries and then get more and more complex as we go along. And it's important that you have your eyes and ears open, because here we have 6. You're going to have 9 check your understanding assignments drawn from the Patrick text. And you'll see in each of those chapters, there's a section called, or you'll see at least one section of each chapter that's called Check Your Understanding. And they'll give you some tasks to perform, okay? And so as you go through and do these workshops with me, it gets you ready to do those. Then I've got the 6 exercises from the Sharda text. That's the one on business intelligence. Then I have a SAS visual analytics project, okay? And I have instructions for those. Then the final part A, final part B, and then final part C through H. And if you've had a class with me before, you know that I have a final, and I'll have stuff that's usually a project that's due up to the start of the final exam. And then in the final exam period itself, I'll have quizzes. Okay, so that shows you how that grading all works. And I've got some information here about the standards. So you pretty much, if you've had classes with me, should know the drill. Now let's go over to the modules, and I'm going to close up this. Let me go through this welcome module one more time. I had alerted you to several things there that were available for you. Okay, and I've got I have some practical examples each week. I tried to provide those. Here is, using big data to predict the housing market. This is some information about Intel and what they're doing. Touch phones, anything that shows us an example, okay, of how databases are used and applied. You'll see these resources. Now, I don't give you a test over them, and I don't do that at all. However, I do have an expectation you're going to go take a look at them, because these are things that are additional to the course and do help you get used to kind of doing some professional development on an ongoing basis by going out and looking at journals or looking at things like the Harvard Business Review, business sections of the Wall Street Journal, the business section of the New York Times, business section of the LA Times, etc. Okay. Now, a key part of this is this idea of the analytical cube, and we talked about that, and how the fact that a database is an important tool for us as managers, because it lets us take data, reorganize it, and run a query and see what we see with a greater amount of have a greater amount of insight as regards transactions, our customers, clients, etc. So this is one of those this is one of those things that I want you to see so that you understand the model of the database. So we're going to really get into that here today, just quickly. Okay. So we've got some good information there. I always try to show you the theoretical and the practical piece of this. And as we walk through here, you're going to find a lot of, some of you will find all of these resources show how we're using databases to create some new business models or to extend the business models that we have. And so it's worth it. It's worth your time to take a look at these. Now, let me roll on down here. And we've got the Sense Place, all kinds of different tools and applications of databases. Okay. And you can see, I also want to remind you or alert you to this thing of the business roles. What are people expecting managers to be able to do out there? This is based on a survey that was done by a gentleman at Duke University. He said, what are the business metrics for data-driven companies? In other words, for larger firms and innovative firms, they tend to be data-driven. What kind of skill sets do you need to have? And in the courses that you take with us, we build you up. We provide you with the skills necessary to become a business analyst. So not only do you end up with your degree and your concentration, but you come with a set of skill sets from these BISS courses that basically give you the same skills as an entry-level business analyst. So you have that tool available, and you don't have to be intimidated by the technology that's out there. You'll understand what it can do and not do for you. All right, and we talked about spreadsheets versus databases. Well, I'm going to go back to the modules section. And those two things I've shown you, the analytical cube, the survey from the guy at Duke, those help you understand why is it that we're studying this. And again, I have some great resources for you to look at. Okay? Now, the week 0 is the course intro. And I also want to encourage you to also go to this site that looks at the diffusion of innovations. This is an article or a blog that talks about how new things get accepted, how a new product is adopted or used. And I think you'll want to see that one for sure and take a look at it. Now, we're in the course, and last night we did kind of the course intro piece, okay? So let's talk some now, and I'm going to jump ahead a little bit to what we would do on Thursday, and then we'll just quickly review it. But I want to spend some time talking about this a little bit. Thursday night, we're going to talk about the concepts of information design and the data warehouse concept. And we're going to learn about this using a database called Northwind Traders. This is a database that was created by Microsoft, and it's there as a template, if you will, to show people how they could use Access. In fact, what this one I think is kind of a cash and carry business. And I can't emphasize enough to you that if you learn Access or become comfortable as an end user using it or interacting with it, I can assure you beyond the shadow of a doubt that when you go to work and you're using, and boss asks you to use a database, it will not look totally familiar, but you'll have enough of a feel for it that you'll be able to work the product within a pretty quick time. Your learning curve will be shortened greatly because you'll understand how databases are put together, and you'll come to understand how important they are to your company. And this has started with this whole idea of the data warehouse, its architecture and its concepts. And so I want to talk about that, and that'll give us some time in the class session next week, next Thursday, during the ground-based section. That is the 6 to 7:15 or 7:30 session. All right, that we can start to look at building some code and working with the lunches database. Okay, but I want to we have the data warehouse concepts and architecture, all that business. And here's what we're going to be looking at, and that's the Northwind Traders. But before I do that, I want to just pop over here, okay, and we'll let you see what we mean by this. All right. Now this is I think it's a little it's like a little PowerPoint, okay, and they really do good job of giving you, okay, the background. Now, one of the most important things you can understand is that there are really two kinds of databases out there. One is a data warehouse. That's where we store data. We keep tables, and it's usually just tables of data. And then we have an operational database that pulls data from those tables, okay? And you're going to hear me talk about, when we run a query, you'll hear me use the term view, okay? What that means is with object-oriented programming, I can go in, I can do a search from 1,000 tables, run a query, do a search, and get all my results, open and take a look at it, print it out, send it somewhere else. But once I close the query, the only thing that's saved is the code, not all the data. And so this helps us manage databases, and it's a powerful, powerful tool, because it means then that we can run query after query, and it's just far more economical and faster for us to get data. But the data in the tables stay the same unless you're working at a level of authority that you can change a table, okay? So they want to give us that contrast. And they talk about the decision-making priorities and hierarchy. And I can tell you this lower one is becoming more and more. We're seeing middle management positions just going and going and going and gone. And that means folks at the supervisory level or entry level skill people, like most of you are going to be, or management trainees, you're going to be in a position where you're already going to be making tactical decisions and carrying out using database to help the company work with its tactics that then feed into its strategy. Okay, and they give you some examples of that. And they show us some of the business about the technology and some of the deployment limitations. And then they talk about the data warehouse characteristics. Okay, and they say it's the infrastructure for business intelligence. And what they mean, or what they're saying, is that a data warehouse That is a collection of all of all of the tables that contain data related to your company. That provides a way for you to go in, run queries, and get insights that you might not otherwise be able to get, and often to get those insights at real time or near real time because of how fast these databases are and how much transactions occur digitally. Most people pay with credit cards. They don't come in with a wad of cash. A few people pay with checks. However, checks have routing numbers and account numbers for the particular financial institution. So you can take those checks and scan them and automatically have your money. You've probably seen these. I think Bank of America does a lot of this. It has an app where you can take a picture of your check and boom, it's in your account. Okay, but we also want to have a repository that we can use to make decisions. And they talk about the comparison of processing environments in terms of transaction processing, okay, versus business intelligence processing. Let's say that you go to Amazon and you buy a book, okay, and you search for the book, you choose the book, then you pay for it, and you determine what card you want to use. You determine delivery. That's operational. That's also known as an e-commerce store. That's a term that you'll use, or an e-retailer or an e-tailer application. Okay, and that's because transactions are occurring. Now, once the transaction is completed, okay, that data gets stored down in the warehouse. Now, there are also some outward-facing kinds of things where companies will go out and they'll look to see how many times did we get mentioned on Twitter? How many times, how many friends have we got on Facebook? What kind of comments are people making on Twitter or Facebook about our product, if any? How are our banner ads doing? Are people visiting our website? Okay. Now, some of the visits to the website, now, those things that don't involve them buying something from you, but saying something about you or visiting your site, that's stuff that, as we collect that information, you start to build a profile of your customer. You start to get a profile of how they respond to how you have your website laid out. Amazon, they're the total masters of this. In fact, they have a thing they developed. It's called a recommendation engine. And what that does is, based upon what you purchase, they just say, well, if you liked A and B, perhaps you'd want to also purchase C and D. It's a cross-selling thing. Okay. So that's important to understand the difference of those two environments. Now, they walk you through some of the data comparisons and what we do with them. The operational database is exceptionally important it has to operate. If most companies don't know it, but they are actually in the e-commerce business. If they take a credit card for payment, they're in e-commerce. If they have a vendor and they share a site with that vendor, they partner up and have an inventory site so that you know what to order from your suppliers so you meet the need of your customers, etc., throughout that food chain. Then the bottom line is, you have an operational database and you have to process those things. So the comparison between them really is, does one involve a transaction real time? Does the other involve a record of a transaction real time? Okay? And that's the difference between them. And both are important. and both have some significant, they both have a significant role to play. If people come into your site and they want to buy something, and then your site doesn't work very well, and they get frustrated and they just walk away from the purchase, you've lost that purchase. Okay? If you have products out there, but they're not organized well as folks do that search to find a shirt or a pair of shoes or whatever they're going to buy, then you got a problem. The data warehouse is essential because once you've stored that information, you need to know how to glean it, to find out how you're doing, but more importantly, to see if it offers you any insights into your customers. Now, a lot of business intelligence also involves looking at your competitors and getting a picture. So you might have a table that tells about all the times that your competitor has run a special or run an ad. Okay? Now, they talk about the different schema and what let me put this up to full for just a minute so we can see it. You'll notice over here that on the operational database, okay, everything comes into an employee, and then you have the customer, and you have the product, and then you have an order. But notice all the incoming going to the order, the transaction. Once the transaction is complete, it becomes part of the data warehouse. And you'll see over here in the data warehouse, you have now records of the transactions, the item, the customer, the store, the time. And you're going to see this time dim, or the textbook's talking about dimensions. Dimensions are variables. Where is our customer located? Address, city, state, zip, country, phone number, email, who's the contact person. That's in a data warehouse. And for example, stored there in the customer. But those are dimensions, those are variables, okay? When we talk about fact tables, we talk about a record of transaction, things that can be added, subtracted, multiplied, and worked with, okay? Now, I'm not trying to make a database administrator of you, or I don't want you to be a geek, but you should understand the two of them. And you should understand that if you're doing it right, the data warehouse will guide you in terms of making decisions about your operational database and how well you're meeting company strategy. So the two of them have kind of a symbiotic relationship with them, all right? And then this is just a quick summary of what they had to say. Oh, we'll close that off. And I want to go over here for a little bit and talk about the information design options. All right. Let me go ahead and put that up here. You said, what in the world do you mean? Okay, let's define a couple of terms, and then this will become a lot clearer to you. Data is just data. A name, a number, a street address, a zip code. It has no real meaning or context until it's involved with some kind of transaction, or it involves one of your key stakeholders. Okay? And the names, the contact person, the addresses, phone numbers, etc. of your customers or your suppliers, that's not transactional data. Those are really dimensional data. But you can design what data you get, all right? Because, the thing that people forget is this: technology is not free. Even if you say, oh, I got these fantastic databases, yes, but you're paying between 4 to 6 people, nearly $500,000 a year, who run the database and can do all the programming. Your data is costing you something, okay? It's costing you that. Storage costs are just so minimal, it's almost near zero. It's people who manage it, that's the cost. So if you're going to collect information, you're going to collect data that you want to turn into information. And information is data that's actionable, okay? For example, somebody makes a car, you go to a car dealer, okay? They service your vehicle. Then they send you emails and say, give us ratings, all right? The ratings, as you fill that out, that's like a transactional process. That's an operational database. It's transaction, but then it goes into a table where it's stored. And you notice often on surveys like that, or most any other survey, they'll have an open-ended part. And so that's where folks will glean information to say, what is it? Why are they? What's the major complaint? What's the thing they really like about our product? Okay, so you want to design what you collect so that you collect the kinds of data that lend themselves to being converted, and that is put together. Now, you're going to hear me talk about this a whole lot. There's an idea or a concept called the law of large numbers. What does that mean? Well, if you wanted to catch a shark, I don't think I'd say, well, now if you go down to Lake Texoma, you're going to find one. Why? Because sharks don't live in Lake Texoma. If you want to catch a shark, you're going to have to go into the ocean. Your chances of getting one, if you go deep sea fishing out of the Gulf of Mexico or off the Pacific coast or off the Atlantic coast, those are going to vary. But you will find sharks if that's what you're after. Why? Well, because that's where all the fish and sharks live. So by the same token, the more data you collect and higher quality data you collect, the better you can leverage this thing of the law of large numbers. Okay? And that's what we're really trying to do. Here you see just kind of a template, and look at these the top part here, and I think this is from Boehner and Pally, and from Mireles. Yeah, so I cite those are the sources where I got them. Okay, they have when, where, what, how, with whom. Okay. And they have, these are temporal data, geospatial data, topical data, process data. How long did it take somebody to check out at your website? If it took them 25 minutes to pay, you want to look at that, because maybe there's something misleading on the screen. Okay, maybe there's a problem. If they took 25 minutes because they put stuff in their cart and then they went back and looked around some more, yeah, you like that, because they're probably going to make a better sale. But so we want to collect this information. Okay. If I'm Amazon, do I care where most of my sales come from, the largest portion? Of course I do. Why? Because I have to make sure that I've got distributors, I've got logistics in place to get the stuff to people. Okay? And I want to make sure that I know where those people are, and are they rail, are they air? How does that all put itself together? But we also want to know, I guess wouldn't it be interesting? Here's something. Let's say that I'm at Amazon, and I'd like to know how many sales of, I don't know, Harry Potter have occurred, of any of their products have occurred in Alabama in the past 5 years versus, let's see, Alabama versus California. Two different states, two different cultures for sure. And we start to get some insights. So you can see we want to design information, the data we collect in such a way, and here we have one time, it's sporadic, it's periodic, or it's continuous. So this is a little bit to take in. I understand that. It's a little ethereal until you're sitting in a meeting one day and somebody says, what kind of information should we get from people who come to our website? Or when people come to use our, how much should we get when we register them? Okay, when people come in and shop inside of, let's say they walk inside our physical store, okay, and they pay with a credit card, or they have an app. If you go to somebody and you trade and you buy from them and they have an application on your phone, they are getting so much data on you, it's not even ridiculous. And again, it's these ways we can go from just simply recording transactions to starting to anticipate what our customers need and want, what's going on with our competitors, what's going on with our suppliers and other key stakeholders. So that's really more kind of the theoretical piece. Now we're going to come to the Northwind Traders database, all right? And I'm going to have you download it, and we're just going to take a look at it and see what this thing looks like. So I'm going to show it in my folder, and here's Northwind Traders. And I'm going to close it off, and I'm going to open it up. Now, let's pop down to the modules, and let's talk about these access workshop, the access workshops, okay, that are going to be due. I need to learn to close these off. And sorry about that. There we go. And we'll look up here. Now, access workshop number one. These are not due till the 21st of February, so we're going to be working ahead. All right. And I will identify what I want you to upload. Okay. And we'll talk about that. What is it? What is it you need to upload for workshop, access workshops 1, 2, and 3? Okay. So I'm going to diminish the LMS browser down for a minute, and I'm going to open Northwind Traders. Now let's talk about it. Now, what you want to do is enable the content. Okay, log on. And then you want to save this. And you want to save it as an access database. And you want to put it on your desktop. And you might even call it Northwind Traders. I'm going to put this Northwind Traders ACCDB 1 Harmon. Okay. Put that, save that. Got it saved. Now we can enable the content. All right. Now, this is a sample database. We'll click enable the content. And watch what's going to happen. There's a little form that they've developed where we log in. Just put log in. Okay. Now this is a little dashboard. You've heard me talk about one. This is one. These are key performance indicators. Let's look at this for just a minute. Do we have any active orders? Do we need to reorder any inventory? Here are click links to things like inventory, view the orders, view customers. This is a sales data warehouse, okay? But the nature of it is such you can adapt it to just about anything. And Microsoft provides this to people as a way to let them see what a database can do. And if you kind of start to get it and see it, you'll go, oh, I could work with just about any product, because what you'll have will be very intuitive and easy to use. Again, we hear people talk about a dashboard. Here's a dashboard. Key performance indicators. What is it that I need to know right here? And what I need to know with this is how many active orders have I got? Okay. Do I have to reorder any inventory? And quick links to some things like sales reports, shippers, etc. So I'm going to close that off. Now you want to have the all access objects open over here on this side, left side. You could do the forms, the tables. Let's click on tables and let's see how many tables are here. And there's a bunch, and that's why it's a warehouse. Now we have what we call these dimensions tables, and these are characteristics of key stakeholders or characteristics of transactions that occur. All right. It's why I store stuff that I'm going to pull out to try to get some insights on my business or just get some general reports. Let's open up the customer for just a minute. And here you can see that you've got a whole slug of information about your customers. You know, their ID, their name, etc. Hi, can I help you? Miss Julie? Oh, gosh, I guess, what type of cell? Well, I think she did. I think she's got a lot of the girlfriend by something or that is an always walk out there. She's probably the one to make the decision. All right, thank you. Okay, I was recording, although I paused the share at somebody at the door. But you can see all of this information, and this is my customers table. Now, we can link tables together, and because we can, then we can link the customers table to inventory transactions, invoices, etc. And to show you, click on the database tools, and then click on relationships. And you'll see, this all looks like spaghetti, I know, but you'll see how these are all interconnected. The great power of a database, it resides in three things. One, the ability to collect data and design what we collect so that we get what we want. in terms of information. That is actionable data. Okay. The second great powerful thing is that we can link these tables together. And because we can link these tables together, we can leverage out what we call the law of large numbers. Plus, we can get a far richer picture of transactions than we ever could before. And we can get a richer picture of our customers, our clients, our customers, our competitors, our suppliers, etc. Okay? So you can see these are all if I untangled all this, you would be able to see the flow of data through the company. Now, let's go back home. All right, we'll go back here to the inventory transaction types. Let's look at that. Let's open it up for a minute. Okay. Now, this is what we call a slowly changing dimension. What that means is these are constants. These are types of transactions. They purchased something. Okay. It was sold. Something that's been sold. Something that's on hold or waste. My hunch is that the purchased and the sold, I guess they're either running some kind of an invoicing system, or maybe they sell some stuff on credit and other stuff they pay cash. I'm just not quite sure. But I know that I have these transaction types. And if I want to, I can go to a list of transactions to see. Inventory transactions. Okay. Now, the inventory transactions, this is what we would call a fact table. Why, you say, Dr. Harmon, why is that? Well, because it's got some things I can quantify. How much of this stuff did I sell in March? What was the quantity? You follow me? Do I have a purchase order number for these? You can see that how we want to have this information, and again, it's fact. It's a fact table. Here's the invoices. You can see the order ID, and this is another fact table because we want to know, okay, how much tax was there on our sales? Did we collect enough tax? Shipping, etc. Back, if you took BISS 1123 with me, and you remember that we created lookup tables. What we really were doing is we had a table, and then we had created a table behind it, so we could just click in and we could create that little drop down menu and then choose what we wanted to. And we'll see some of that as we work with data integrity. Here's some data details. Okay. Again, this is a fact table. And here's the order details in terms of their status. This is a pure dimension table. And then orders, this is going to be a fact table. Order status. Order tax status, is it tax exempt or not? So I think you start to see what I'm talking about here. And again, this is the warehouse where we've got all this information, and we have characteristics or variables. Then we have fact tables that are these involve a transaction. Okay. Something that I can add, subtract, multiply, divide, etc. Now let's go ahead and we've got these tables, and let's look for a moment at just the queries. All right, and I'm going to close all of these other ones. And we have a query called Customers Extended, and let's look at it. Okay, now you'll see we have a contact name, the file, they're filed as the ID, the company, last name, first name, email address. We have everything about these customers that we would want to know. And why would we care? Well, there's so many queries we could run off of this. Typically, you could say, how many dimensions? What's the number of dimensions in the table or tables you're running, i.e., columns? And that'll give you how many, a sense of how much output that you can get. And we'll talk about that when we get into Patrick. Here's the customer's extended. Here's our employees' extended data. Here's the inventory. So this is a fact table because I can count up and see how much inventory I've got, etc. And fact tables tend to be linked to, well, almost normally, well, they'd have to be. They're linked to the transaction databases that are out there. A transaction database or a storefront or an e-storefront is a place where a transaction occurs. That transaction data is stored or it is sent immediately into the warehouse. Now you're going to have people use the terms of data mart. And the data mart might be a database that just has information about a data mart. One of the most typical data marts is a database that contains all transactions, or maybe certain types of transactions, or data about just customers, or data about particular types of customers, on and on. So you have this idea of a data mart where you have a more specialized little database. And there are basically going to be two types of them. There's going to be one that's transactional in nature, operational nature, and then there's going to be another that's more dimensional in nature. Okay? Now, every database not only has queries. Well, before that, let's look here at a query. Let's close off these other two because the employees that's more of a dimensional. And let's look at the inventory and right click on it. And I'm going to go down to the design view. Okay. And I'm going to be able to see what tables did I get this from? Okay. Now, we want to notice something, how they're all linked up. And so we have the products, we have inventory, on order, sold. And so you see we're drawing from a number of tables in our query. Now we can go down to the SQL view. Okay. And there's the structured query language at the SQL. It looks very formidable, but it's not. And by the end of the semester, you'll be able to take that apart. Now, the beautiful thing is that we have this thing called the design view. And when you took Business 1123 with me, we put our toes in the water with Access within any database. And any database today has this feature where I can link tables or look at how tables are linked. I don't have to write the SQL. I can just make the selections. Okay? Because we want to spend our time thinking about what we want to get from the database, why we want to get it, how often we want to get it, and once we have that information, what are we going to do with it? Because information technology and data, if it's going to be worth its money, it must lead us to something that enables us to make a decision. And that's how, making decisions, we fulfill company operational goals, how we fulfill company strategy, and ultimately mission. Okay? So you can see that. We'll talk a lot about that. Northwind Traders is a great example of that. Now, every database also has reports. Let's look at that. Okay. And here's a customer address book. Everything we want to know about our customers. Here's their phone book. You remember, as I told you earlier about the concept of a data mart? Here's one. Their address, their phone book. So if we looked at these, we can run a query that pulls information from both of these, or mixes and matches information. And these two are going to be, look, here's the employee address book, employee phone book. Here's invoices, customer labels, monthly sales reports, quarterly sales reports. So it has a report function. Now, the last thing that I want to talk about quickly are forms. And every database has forms, and you're going to have two types of forms. You're going to have one that's on the end user side, i.e. the customer, or the employee, like you or me, managers working, trying to look at some data and make some decisions. Do we keep this supplier? Do we find another? Are these people charging us too much, etc.? That's one piece of it. But then you also have forms that you use in terms of what I would call the back office, where you start to get some analytics on how your company's performing, especially its internal operations. You know, out of let's say I'm Bank of America, and on February the 1st, 2019, in the morning, in the AM, say in the mornings, or by given hour, how many times did we have a customer try to use a credit card and it wouldn't work, although the customer was in good standing and had money in their account? A system failure. How many times did we have a customer present a card, they didn't have enough money on their account and it got turned down, and so the customer was put into an embarrassing situation, etc.? How would I deal with that? Okay. How many instances of credit card theft did somebody call in and tell us? You can see the kinds of information that we need for good decisions and making good policy. So this is just a short little trip here through the data warehouse. Okay. And again, I'm always trying to kind of keep us thinking about, all right, well, what's ahead, etc. Well, here's a fact table, and what this is. Let's download this for just a second. Well, we'll go ahead and do this because I want to focus on Lunch's database next Thursday, and we'll download this. Notice it's called the Fact Sales and it's an export. I'll show it in the folder. I'll put it out here on the desktop. And you say, what are we looking at? What we're looking at is a query on sales, and we've exported them to Excel. You say, why did we do that? We did that because we may be able in Excel to take this fact table and create visual tools, a bar graph, bar chart, a pie, a pivot table that is going to have, that's going to be easier. It's going to be easier for an end user or decision maker to work with. And in BISS 1123, if you took it with me, we had a text by Stephen Few called "Show Me the Numbers," where we really emphasized how do I portray data visually such that it's accurate and such that it takes advantage of our natural human inclination to look for patterns. Okay, same story here. Or how, if I want to do some heavy lifting in terms of statistics, okay, well, I could do that a little bit easier here. Now, let me say this. There are hybrid products out there today, that attempt to blend the best of both worlds, the best of a database, the best of a spreadsheet. Tableau is one of those products that's out there. MicroStrategy is one of those products. SAS Visual Analytics is another. SAP has its own product. Oracle does. There are all kinds of vendors out there. But what they do is they combine the database with the spreadsheet function. Okay, so that so that you can get the best of both. And typically what they'll do is they'll lean more towards, they'll give you tables you can access, you can run a query, and then take that query, generate, output like it's a certain type of table, and then look at it and look for patterns. Okay. Now, we talked about that map. I want to talk some now, or spend a little bit of time talking about the Patrick database. SQL Fundamentals 3rd edition is, when I talk about the Patrick text, that's what I refer to, okay? And let's see here. I'm going to open this up, a new tab, and I'm going to go over to Amazon so you can see the picture. And I'll put in the title, Fundamentals. And we're using the 3rd edition by John J. Patrick, so you can see that textbook. There it is. Now, this textbook, does it say you can look inside? I don't think we can, but you should bring it to class with you, because we're going to start going through running queries using this text. Now, let me show you what I mean real quickly. I think I'll cut this off. If you go into the files section, you're going to find the Patrick materials. I think. There it is, the zip. And that zip file contains SQL or a SQL code for every chapter as we work through this thing called Lunches database. And we'll be taking code from there and we'll be putting it into Access into a database and run the code. So we generate a query and see what we get. We'll also create tables and do some updates, some other kinds of things. Okay. So I'll focus some more on that than I will on what's there on the 7th. All right. Well, folks, I'm going to call it a day. And again, I will take this and process it and then post it up in the announcements. And this will be part 2. So this will be the virtual part of this week for BISS 4403. Okay. All right. I'm going to stop the sharing. And I'm going to stop recording.